Hail and well met friends, Andeng here for a special news update. Today there was major news announced in a executive producer letter by Kate Pays talking about what is going to be happening to LOTRO in 2014. And let's go ahead and get into the big news, which is that LOTRO will not have an expansion this year. And joining me to talk about this is Brax and Athelros, so welcome.
I thought you were going to go first. Hello.
All right. And we'll go ahead and start by quoting them from the letter that they sent out, which says that we've heard a lot of your suggestions, and we heard a lot of suggestions that you want to take a break from the annual expansion cycle, and we agree. We'd like to take time to revisit some older systems and add more region content, and just generally have more Middle-earth to explore throughout the year. When the Players' Council last visited, we asked them what they thought of a year focused more on content and more opportunities to refine and improve existing systems. They echoed the sentiment we'd heard from many of you already, and were unanimous in support. They were also very passionate on one point. VIPs should get this new content for free, which is fantastic as a VIP player. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I mean, I think that over the last few years, VIPs have kind of gotten the short end of the stick and haven't really gotten the kind of content that was initially promised when they said they were going to go free to play.
Yeah, I guess the only thing is I don't know what that implies for non-free to non-VIPs. Does that because in the past some things did come quote unquote free. Some of the epic story, which we know was not the case this last time around in the last expansion, but some of the other things. I wonder if we're getting closer and closer to that microtransaction model that the Facebooks and others have popularized.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they charge for the Epic again. I really doubt that they will, especially after the reaction that the community had and probably the player council as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they do actually charge for the Epic or charge for some other small amount of content in that same fashion, like maybe a small story DLC or something like that. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, this is uncharted territory for LOTRO. I don't think they've ever had a year where they promised to basically do major updates quarterly and not have an expansion. Because even with free to play, they still didn't have updates like this by any means. So it's uncharted territory for LOTRO. But let's go ahead and go into if we're glad to see it or not. So Brax, what do you think about the expansion? No expansion this year.
Well, I think that it could be a very good thing. They've talked about going back and looking at some of the existing systems and making them better, which people have talked about. And this is one of the things that we were a little confused about when they introduced yet another epic battle system with this expansion was, well, we have so many now, and there's several that need some additional work and some tweaking and maybe some complete revamps. And maybe this is going to give them an opportunity to go back and make the entire game experience from level 1 all the way to level 95 much better and more smoother.
Yeah, let's hope that they really do fulfill their promise, which they kind of didn't with housing changes, but they did mention that in the letter and said that they were going to make sure that that happens. But yeah, let's hope that they actually do improve upon systems and make LOTRO a much better game to play. And Thelros, what are your thoughts?
Well, this is probably the best news they've given me all year, to put it lightly.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, with the immense class changes they've done and all the new systems and everything, I think having another expansion, another level cap raised again, assuming they don't do it, without an expansion, it would just be too much to upset the. I mean, the stability isn't exactly all there at the moment. So I think taking a year off from adding a huge amount in one go, to spread out and do some TLC on the game that's already there is a very good thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. All right, and they go on to say in the letter that there's going to be more content more often. In the past, we've focused on yearly expansion packs that brought big changes and lots of new content at the end of the year, coupled with smaller updates throughout the year and a new region in the spring. In 2014, we are going to focus on a steady flow of content throughout the year. We're planning on adding new content on a quarterly basis in 2014. Players have expressed a desire to explore a bit deeper into Fangorn Forest and to see Isengard flooded in the battle with the Ents. Both of these are slated for our first quarterly update in March. Wow, we are going to see the fall of Isengard in March.
Not to mention Fangorn.
And more Fangorn. I was very surprised to see that Isengard is going to be falling that early next year. That's just a few months away. That completely shocked me.
I was surprised that they gave us that many specifics. Usually
Yeah.
they try and tease things for next year, and then maybe in a developer chat they'd come out with some more specifics as a result of player questions. But this is pretty cool. I think we talked about we bounced around the idea of going down the paths of the dead and into there a couple times on our news program, and we haven't, I don't think, figured out a good way that would work with the story. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do that.
Yeah, and it's definitely interesting that they mentioned March because I think that's probably why we're getting more information, because it is going to be coming in March as opposed to Wildermore was actually in May. So I think that probably has something to do with us learning this information so early on.
I have to wonder that, are they going to have, I mean, again, assuming they don't raise the level cap next year at all, are all these going to be the end game content? So we won't have any XP gain through the entire year if you're at level cap.
Right, that's something I'm actually a little bit worried about, is the fact that there might not be any XP gain at all in 2014. I hope that they do like a 5 level update, and maybe not update armor or anything like that, and just give us an extra amount of XP to gain. And then that way we can get back onto, that would take us to 100, which would be awesome, because then we'll be on even numbers again, as opposed to the...
I think this would be the first time that they've added a zone with, well, keeping the same level cap and more than one. I mean, they've added stuff like the Great River and Enedwaith, which has stayed at the same level cap, but this is 3 zones. I believe it, yeah, 3. Past the Dead Marshes, and Fangorn Forest. So that's quite a big chunk of landscape to be adding.
Yeah, and that's what they mentioned there. There might even be, with the 4th content update, who knows what we might see. Because it says, let's go ahead and read on to the next sentence. Later in the year, we will be seeing more iconic locales and moments from the lore, including the Paths of the Dead and the Dead Marshes. We will also take our first steps into Gondor.
Now, which way in Gondor is the question?
Are we going through the Paths of the Dead? Or, how are we getting to Gondor is my main question right now.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this, Brax?
Just to back up a little bit on Ethelros's point, I actually really like the idea of this potentially being some more in-game stuff. I know that some of the folks who are really into the old rating type of in-game are less than impressed with the big battle system, and I think it would be awesome if they could provide some more in-game stuff. But then again, that kind of runs counter to the way they've been trying to get new players involved in some of the newer content. So I don't know if that's going to work out or not. First steps into Gondor, wow, hey, my character's supposed to be from Gondor, so he's going to be excited to go home. I don't know how he's going to get there, though. Like you said, that's going to be really interesting. I hope it's not instanced. I would like to see something a little bit more landscape-like to get there.
Yeah, I really hope that we can actually travel from Rohan or some other place in Middle-earth to Gondor. That would be fantastic.
I will be excited to see how the art design and landscape world builders design Gondor, since obviously Rohan has been spectacular in that regard.
Yeah, I imagine we'll see a Stangard-like structure so Great River style zone for Gondor this next year because so we won't really be going into Gondor like we do. That'll be the next expansion, I'd imagine. But we will at least be seeing some of the art design, and I'm very excited about that because when we first went to Rohan, that was awesome, and Gondor is even more impressive. So I'm excited to see where this goes.
I think just a final point on the level cap thing. I think a lot of concerns people tend to have with this is that with no XP gain, you don't get the feel of progression. Now, personally, I don't mind this because you usually get tokens and stuff to barter for stuff like that. But it is a concern a lot of people tend to have, especially when they were doing stuff in the Great River.
Right.
Yeah, I have some difficulty with that too. There's just something about watching that bar move and seeing the little tree pop up that's just pretty satisfying.
Yep. So let's hope that they give some type of level gain. I think that if any time is the time to bring our levels back to even numbers, this is the time, Turbine. Please let us go back to even numbers. I know that bothers a lot of players.
Well,
All right.
if they give us 5 levels, then we get to catch up with WoW, right?
That's right. Yeah, assuming they don't move forward. Um, all right. And if you are a VIP, then these regions and content will be free with your subscription. So that includes Fangorn and the Paths of the Dead, the next part of Gondor, plus whatever is happening in Isengard to get that to fall. So that's just a ton of content that will be free to VIPs. Finally, I'm seeing a value in my subscription beyond just the little perks and things. We're actually getting real content beyond just one zone every year. So
You didn't like your portrait frame?
that portrait frame is very nice. I do display it. I look at it all day. I don't even play LOTRO. I just look
All
at the
day.
portrait frame. And, as great as that is, it would be nice to see some other content for VIP players.
My frame gave me hours of enjoyment.
Awesome. All right, and inventory and bag space. The letter moves on to say that we know you can never have enough bag space when you're out adventuring, and inventory management and control can almost be its own mini-game at times. We think it's time to take a new look at inventory in LOTRO and see where we can make improvements. Please share any thoughts you have on what works and what doesn't work with you regarding the inventory here, and they give a link for players to submit their responses about inventory. So that's great that they're actually listening to the community and seeing what they would like to do with inventory. And it is about time that we get some type of improvement because I don't want to see 6 more bags or something like that.
Yeah, I don't. That's nice. I like that they're soliciting feedback at this point, and I think this is probably something else that the Players Council has pointed out to them, is they need to do a little bit more of this outside of just the beta.
I mean, personally, maybe it's because I've had the 6th bag and premium wallet and everything, but I never really thought inventory management was that trouble for me. I think the thing I found worse is that actually getting loot is boring, from landscape mobs at least.
Yeah, that might be more of an issue. Because right now with the added LIs that came with mounted combat, I do have a lack of space in my inventory. And so it's good to see them hopefully increasing it. It sounds like that they are because they said you can never have enough bag space. So I'd assume that they're going to be increasing the overall amount that players can have. And so hopefully we'll get more room to store stuff. All right. And it moves on to talk about festivals and events, saying that they'll continue to cover festivals and get players' participation. Really not too much news there, but they finish off with talking about housing and that it is still high on their list of objectives for the year. And the conversation thread can be found at the link, and they will be talking about this more throughout the year. So it sounds like that they might continue with their small updates to housing as it continues on, as they do say throughout the year. So I don't know. I'm interested in seeing what they're going to be doing, but we'll see what happens.
Well, as far as the content updates go, this is, I mean, you could kind of maybe see this coming just because of the way that other games have started to do more frequent, smaller updates throughout the course of the year, and the way that kind of just the nature of doing things on the internet, you see sites like Facebook and Gmail doing small incremental updates, and the kind of the player expectation is now moving more to that instead of the large, big update once a year type of model that kind of was in place in the past.
Right, and instead of bringing players back for that 1 year thing, you're keeping players in the game the whole year, and so you're creating a service as opposed to a one-time purchase for an expansion.
Right,
So
which makes a subscription make even more sense. Right.
yeah, it does finally justify the subscription to LOTRO again, I think. We'll see what they do moving forward. This might just be a 1 year thing, but it does keep me interested to see what'll happen moving forward if we might get 2 side zones and expansion a year. I think we can all agree though that Helm's Deep definitely felt rushed.
Certain parts of it definitely did, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that it's definitely good for them to take a break from expansions and get ahead again. It felt like that this was kind of their, because they were working on this way before Riders of Rohan came out, but it felt like they kind of fell back a little bit with the epic battles especially, just because of the amount of time it takes to build a new system like that. With the original game, they already had Moria completely built, basically. They had the expansion ready to go when they released LOTRO, so these things take a long time to build, and it's definitely good that they're going to be hopefully getting ahead again so that we can really see a lot of time focused on the new expansion that'll be coming in 2015, presumably.
The other thing that this does, and this really just occurred to me as we were talking through this, but if you think of it from a company's perspective, like Turbine, it's probably makes a lot more sense to have a consistent staff that's there consistently making content updates as opposed to how they used to do, which is kind of augment the staff when it was time to do development work for a big expansion and then let a bunch of people go afterwards. I mean, this is a lot better for continuity's sake from their perspective as well.
I don't know if they necessarily let a lot of people go and then hire them back too much. They obviously do that with voice actors and things like that, but
well, after Rohan, there was a lot of people let go at Turbine, and it was news.
There was, but I'd never heard of them hiring them back, so I don't know. I honestly don't think that they do it in that direction because they're working on the expansion the whole year, and sometimes years in advance, like the mounted combat system, for example. And I think that while they might do that a little bit, I don't think it's necessarily as much as you might think.
Well, you'd hope not. You'd hope not, anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
There is this final sentence I don't think we've mentioned yet near the end of the article.
And I was getting ready to bring that up, and it's kind of snuck into the housing section, which might be on purpose, I don't know. But it says that we are working on one more secret surprise, but I won't do much more to tease its existence now, other than to say that the class changes have made it possible for us to consider making a new addition to the game, which we will talk about later in the year.
We all know what they're hinting at.
A new class. That's definitely what it sounds like.
They couldn't be hinting at anything else.
Yeah.
It does sound like a new class, yeah.
And if it's anything else, then we're all going to be very disappointed.
It's the Ent class.
I hope not.
This actually brings up...
We got to plug the eyes in somehow, right?
This actually brings up a point I was going to make towards the end here, is that with these producers' letters, it wouldn't be the first time that they've made a bold claim and later had to go back on it. The Ettenmoors having a new PvP area twice, they've had to go back on it. The housing, that was one example, recent one. I wouldn't be amazed if at least one of these things they're saying is going to come, either will come late or not at all.
Yeah, and that's kind of to be expected by any game developer, to be honest. This early in the game, predicting, they have hopes, but this is the one time a year where they express what may or may not ever happen, and it's good to see inside the mind of the dev and know that they're actually trying and working hard to give us the best game possible. That being said, they're not doing an expansion this year, so I think that does make it be more viable for them to get things done that they promise, but we'll see what happens.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting, and I don't remember if I mentioned it on this show, but I definitely mentioned to the two co-hosts that I have here that are awesome for staying with me through this. But I do think that this is honestly bigger news than the announcement of Helm's Deep because we all expected Rohan, we all expected Helm's Deep, but I don't think very many people expected there not to be an expansion this year and this coming year. And so I honestly think it's a great thing, and hopefully it will mean a better Lotro for us in the years to come.
Yep.
All right, any final thoughts, anybody, before we sign off here?
None here.
Don't think so.
All right, well, thank you everyone for watching. Reminder that you can find all the Lotro news that Turbine puts out, like these big announcements, over at LotroPlayers.com. And be sure to watch Lotro Players News each week, where we do the news in Lotro and make sure to keep everyone informed. So thank you all so much for watching this video all the way through, and we will definitely see you in 2014 with all the amazing new content updates that will come, including the Fall of Isengard. So till then, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again real soon.